I'm gonna start making a definition of pronouns, but to begin with, we should make a quick reminder about the concepts of deixis and anaphora. Deixis is the identification of a person, objects, or activities, and so on in relation to the context created by the act of discourse. So it depends on discourse to have meaning. An anaphora is to make a reference of a word used previously in a sentence without any repetition, that is, replacing a word. So, pronouns are a category of words which is used both deictically or anaphorically. When we say he saw me, is a deictic use of the pronouns because you are identifying the person and the objects and the activities in relation to the context which you created in the act of speech. But an anaphoric use of the pronouns is, for example, in this sentence, call John and tell him to bring food. Call John and tell him. So you are replacing the word John, which is the subject, by him. So you're making an anaphora. Because you don't want to repeat that word. You don't want to make a repetition. Then you just replace the subject by the pronoun. Let's move on to the function. The pronouns function as head in a noun phrase, which is why they represent the larger category of nouns. The difference between nouns and pronouns is that pronouns provide a more limited range of dependence. Also, pronouns can form full noun phrases, as in the first example, he saw me, and they do not take determiners. Let's go to the categories. First, personal pronouns. They are classified according to the person, as we know, I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they, and etc. Then we have the inflectional forms, which divide into reflexive and non-reflexive. The reflexive are myself, yourself, himself, etc. And they are used when the pronoun and an antecedent are closely related. So, for example, Mary hurt herself. The reflexive pronouns have only a plain case form. Thus, there are no genitive cases. For example, you can't say Mary left herself's jacket at home. You can't say herself's, himself's, yourselves. You have to say Mary left her jacket at home. There are no genitive forms. The non-reflexive pronouns approach the plain case and the genitive cases. So the genitive case is divided into dependent and independent. The independent are my, your, her, our, your, their, and the independent are mine, yours, hers, ours, yours, theirs. And that it is. But now let's talk about some words that are not considered pronouns in the common sense, but they actually are and should be studied as well. First, we have singular they, and it is important to mention the cases in which they is used as a singular form. For example, someone has left their jacket on the table. In this case, they is used as singular and it is gender neutral. So you don't know the gender of the person that is practicing the action, so you use they. For some speakers, singular they has a different reflexive form, themselves. So, for example, someone has locked themselves inside the house. Next one is the pronoun one. The word one can replace the article, it can function as an adjective and so on, but it can also be a pronoun. The pronoun one is impersonal and generalizing. In the US, it is more used in literature and it can be replaced by you, but in England, it's more commonly used. For example, there's this sentence, if one fails, then one must try harder next time. So you use the pronoun one to refer to a class or a bunch of people. Then we have there. There is actually a preposition, but it can also be used as as a pronoun in some situation, and it has only a plain case form. It is able to occur as subject in an interrogative tag, such as, for example, there is a white house in the end of the street, isn't there? And so it has an interrogative tag. Next one is all and both. All and both can be considered compound pronouns. For example, they called us all. She likes us both. They love us all. He loves us both. We have many examples of that, and these are considered compound pronouns. Next, we have reciprocal pronouns, and there are two reciprocal pronouns, each other and one another, and they have no difference in meaning. For example, you can say they hugged one another and they love each other. Also, they can remind us of the reflexive forms of personal pronouns because they're also anaphorically related. Later, we have interrogative and relative pronouns. The interrogative and relative constructions make a gender distinction within the pronouns between personal and non-personal. Non-personal divides into plain and genitive. Plain are the words what and which, and genitive is the word whose. Personal divides into nominative, which is who, accusative, which is whom, and genitive, which is whose. The interrogative version of whose is actually a determinative, not a pronoun, but is usually studied as one. Here we have some examples. Example of non-personal is, what did she do? A personal is, who did you see? So in non-personal, you say what, because you are not referring to a person, obviously. And in a personal, you say who, because you are referring to a person. Besides these forms, you have a compound in some cases, which is ever. For example, non-personal, you say whatever, and for personal, you say whoever. There are three words that are usually analyzed as pronouns, but are excluded from the pronoun category because they can take determiners. It is echo what and the pronominals one another. An example of echo what is someone says, I told her about the issues, and the other replies, you told her about what? So the what is an echo because it refers to something you said in the previous sentence. The echo what is actually very different from the interrogative pronoun what, because it is able to replace words of more or less any category and to take on the inflectional properties, as in, I bought 3 cars, and someone replies, you bought 3 what? You know, you even have the plural, and or I sold the car. You wanted the car? Like, I didn't understand what you said in the previous sentence, so I'm replacing the word I didn't understand or I'm surprised by with what, so it's an echo. An example of pronominal one is someone asks, which movies do you enjoy? And the other answers, the ones about science fiction. So one functions as a pronoun there. And other has the same function. Someone asks, which books do you need? And they answer the 3 others. So one and other have basically the same function. So to wrap it up, a very important property of pronouns in the English language is that they don't allow determiners. That is, we can never say the they or some you or our each other. They don't allow that. Only in these 3 previous cases I just mentioned. And this is it.